Well, we left our Spurs down in Arizona and have returned to Colorado, where the Buffaloes prepare for family weekend with the Cincinnati Bearcats coming into town. Had our press conference this week, some good stuff. And let's start with Jordan Seaton, because I was telling you after he met with us that this young man is going to make some good endorsement money in the NFL once he gets there.
Yeah, and he's not only mature, especially for a freshman, but I think a lot of times he's unintentionally funny. And he was today, where he was talking about, he was asked about, well, what were the three things that Coach Prime told you to work on? And he was he's thinking about it, and he goes, now don't quote me on this. It's like, that's why we're here, is to quote you on this stuff. And but I love him because he's a guy that he can laugh at himself. It's just a really mature young man, and obviously playing some good football, and you can see the development with him as he grows up.
Yeah, and you see some guys come in as five-star recruits, and they have this air of that things are owed to them. Jordan Seaton from day one has said and done, it seems like, everything the right way since he's gotten here. And, if he was eligible, I think this is a couple years in college type guy to go to the pros, but he's got to wait his 3 years. And by the time he gets to that point, he's going to be a first-rounder.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to go with what you were saying initially, it says a lot about him that when he talks about why he chose here, people can say money and all those things, but what he says is that, look, all these coaches were telling me how great I am, and Coach Prime told me three things I need to work on. And that's what really drew him to Colorado was, oh, I'm going to get developed. They want me to work on some things. And so, and he, those are things that, he talks about. He loves being coached by Phil Lodeholt because he's got high standards for him, and he keeps him humble because he tells him every week, no, you didn't do this right, so let's work on this. And so you like that approach that he's taking, and that's why he's going to get better, is because he's coachable, and he likes hearing that there's things to improve upon.
To that point, in the point that he made about the fact that Colorado told him three things to work on, Coach Prime did, whereas other schools were telling him how great he is. That's a rare thing to find in a high school recruit now. So it's been really fun to watch his development. Another five-star, sounds like he's a little healthier than he was last week. Coach Prime said that Travis Hunter has a little bit more pep in his step. We even saw a quick cameo from Travis Hunter after Coach Prime's presser.
Yeah, as soon as Coach Prime was done, Travis walks in, gives him the standing ovation for the press conference, and it's usually not like Travis to make a unprovoked appearance in front of the media, so he didn't talk. But it's great to hear that he's got that extra pep in his step, and that he's feeling better. Coach Prime talked about he did some conditioning today, which he needs, and obviously he doesn't get really tired, but he needs that conditioning. So we want to see more of Travis Hunter. Obviously, we all do, and the Buffs need it. There's a lot of reasons we want to see Travis Hunter. The Buffs need it because he's the best player on the field. His Heisman campaign needs it for him to get on the field and put up some big numbers. And so it's great to hear that Travis Hunter will be back.
And it sounds like Isaiah Augustov has earned another start at running back. Doesn't have jump-off-the-page stats, but he really has kind of passed the eye test in terms of getting what he can out of his runs.
Yeah, for sure. And I've liked the way he runs the ball from the start. And I kept saying even last week, like, man, I'd love to see him get 10 to 15 carries. So I think he had 14. And it was only 53 yards, I think it was. But they were nice, productive yards that he was getting for the Buffs last week. And so I think he's a guy that if you continually give him, 12 to 15 carries or so, you're going to see good production. I think he's a guy, I think he's a 100-yard game waiting to happen if he can get that type of carries. And he's just impressive to me.
And defensively, we get a chance to talk to Keaton Wade, who said that he had conversations with Colorado staff that the plan is for him to redshirt. He's played in one game. He can play in three more and still redshirt. And given their depth on the edge, that makes a lot of sense, especially he's a junior right now. If he redshirts, he's got 2 more years of eligibility left. In the NIL era, you can make some money while you're in college. It would make sense for him, I think, to still preserve that red shirt, even despite, 11 defensive snaps, having 2 sacks and 2 tackles for a loss, or 2 pressures. It was a very quick way to make an impact on this team with very limited reps last Saturday.
Yeah, we were kind of joking. I'm not sure I've seen anybody make more out of 11 snaps than Keaton Wade did last week. And, yeah, it's a smart thing. This is why you like the redshirt rules, because there is a thing if somebody gets hurt after 4 games, then you have that year. But I also like that it allows some spot time as well. I remember several years ago, I think it was the first year that they allowed this. The Buffs did that with Dimitri Stanley. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like late in the year, they were a little banged up at receiver, and it's like, all right, let's get Dimitri a couple games in there as a true freshman, and he was able to play and be productive. Keaton Wade looks like he can do the same thing, and they've been out Dayon Hayes for 3 games now, and so Keaton goes in and provides a nice boost to that pass rush. I don't know if they're going to get Dayon back, but if they do, then you don't need Keaton necessarily, and so it allows you to have that spot moments where he can play.
And you asked Coach Prime about the improved pass rush. Yeah. They were flying around, and certainly Arizona's offensive line was struggling as well. But even before that, you could kind of sense that type of performance was coming from that group.
Yeah, it seemed like they were close, and they're starting to turn those into sacks. And Coach Prime mentioned, look, these guys are starting to listen, and they're playing better and they're practicing better and things like that. So it wasn't just a matter of like, oh, we're close and now we're starting to get them. It's that they've started to play better, and practice better. And so that group, I would imagine too. I didn't get to ask this follow up, but I imagine too that when you see somebody get 2 sacks, that fuels everybody else. I mean, because think of how many different guys have had multiple sack games in the last few weeks. I mean, Okunlola, Keaton Wade, B.J. Green. Didn't Dayon Hayes have one a couple weeks ago as well? I think there's 4 or 5 guys that have multi-sack games, and so I think it's contagious a little bit.
Any other takeaways from today? This was our second to last opportunity to talk to them before the Cincinnati game. I guess on Cincinnati, Coach Prime talked about the fact that they're pretty close statistically, that Colorado maybe has a little bit of an edge stat-wise defensively, whereas Cincinnati's a little bit more balanced offensively.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would read it, and I know we'll get more into it later in the week, but they're sort of similar profile teams in that you look at the preseason projections, and both teams were projected near the bottom of the Big 12, and here they are with a chance. The winner is in really good spot to contend, down the stretch. And so there's a lot at stake for both these teams. And bowl eligibility, I think a lot of people would have not put either one of these teams in a bowl game coming into the year. Well, now the winner is not only in a bowl game, but I think the loser is going to get there as well. So these are 2 bowl teams, and it's going to be a pretty fun game.
Tucson was pretty great weather-wise. We had a fun football game to cover there, but the weather here is pretty amazing too. I think October is my favorite month in Colorado. I just kind of wish it was an afternoon game, but we're preaching to the choir out there.
Yeah, and I will say this too. I thought that was an interesting note that Coach Prime mentioned about the late games. He was asked about those, and we know he doesn't like those, and but he gave an interesting point about that and acknowledged that, hey, we haven't played our best football in these late games because we kind of practice in the mornings. We're better in the afternoon games because that's our time. And he mentioned that they're shifting some things this week to try to be ready and get off to that faster start. And really, you look at the 3 late games they've had, North Dakota State, Baylor, and Kansas State, have all been at home, and they haven't been great games. Every one of them, they're 2-1 in those games, but every one of them, I think they walked in afterwards and was like, we didn't play that great of a football game, and so it was good that they acknowledged that. It was nice hearing that they're going to change some things this week.
So maybe all of us have to have an attitude adjustment,
right,
to kind of reverse this jinx that's going on with these late night games. I guess jinx is a strong word, like you said. They're 2-1, but okay. I'm going to get my nap in. Everybody get your nap in on Saturday, but we got to come back and preview that game. So we'll be back later this week to do exactly that.